Alright, this step I'm going to show you how to primitively stitch like the faces, or just using a primitive stitch altogether. I've got my pieces that I've cut from the template, my little eye patch and my nose. In the instructions I usually talk about the MC thread. It's an embroidery thread found for cross stitching and embroidery. It kind of looks like this when you buy it, and so when you pull off the strand, it has 6 strands of thread in this grouping, and on your instructions I'll tell you whether you need to use 1 strand or 2 strands. So follow your instructions on your pattern. For this one we're just going to be using 1 strand. You can see that I've got my thread and needle all threaded. So I've doubled it over. It's just 1 strand, and this is what we're going to do. You're always going to have one side longer than the other. And then what I like to do first is I like to audition these little pieces before I go on. So I put the little eye patch down, and I put the nose, and I kind of move them around until I have them where I like them. And once I have them in place, I go back to my disappearing ink pen, and I go ahead and mark on the patterns. It will show you what the faces look like, and in your instructions it'll tell you when to do all of this as well. But I go ahead, I just freehand it. You can transfer them from the pattern if you want, but if you mess up, that's the nice thing about these disappearing pens. You can iron it, get rid of it, and then start all over. So now we're ready to start. What I do is I pull away this first piece, leaving the 1 piece down, and then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to start my thread. I did not knot the end of my thread. I'm just going to push it through to this one corner here, and then pull, and watch the back. Make sure you leave a long thread like that. Hang on to it so it doesn't pull all the way through. And now I'm going to start stitching this down primitively. So all I'm doing is I'm going to catch some of this fabric, and I'm going to come back up over here and pull. There's my first thread, my first stitch. Now I'm going to make an X, so I figure out where I want to, put my X. So I'm going to start over here, come back through, pull, and there. Now I'm going to cross that thread by doing this. This time you got to come up on the eye patch. Make sure you stay on the eye patch. And there's my X. And just keep doing that until you've gone all the way around. You can keep stitching all the way across here if you'd like. For me, I just like to go ahead and stop, just stitch around this part, stop over here, bring my nose back into position, and then what I do is I then start again, but this time my thread is there. I'm going to take this stitch here. You can see that I'm coming out here to take the stitch, and then when I come out, I'm coming out down here on the bottom of the nose. So there's the one last stitch there that I took, and then there's my thread there, and it came out at the front of the bottom of the nose. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stitch around the nose all the way again. We're coming around here to where I started. There's my first stitch on the nose, and we're coming around here, but I want to leave a little opening here because I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to leave my thread like this, and I'm going to get some of my stuffing. You don't need a whole lot. I'm going to take my stuffing and my little fork that we used before, and in that little opening I'll shove some stuffing in that nose there so that it gives it just a little bit of dimension. You know, you can add a little more, it can be bigger if you want. You know, but don't overstuff it too much, because then it'll stretch the threads out, and you don't want to do that. So that gave it a little dimension, like his nose is sticking out. And once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and finish stitching the rest of these primitive stitches, and then we'll be done, and I'll show you what you do when you're done. Here's the last. Okay, so this is my last stitch for my primitive stitching. I'm going to go, and now I'm going to push all the way through to the back and get as close to where I started and pull it all the way through. Make sure it looks good on the front, which it does. And there's my threads. Now all I'm going to do is tie these off and then hide my thread tails like we've done before, like in one of our other video clips. So I just do 1, 2, and then I clip. And now I'll hide that thread tail. Alright, so I've re-threaded those ends. I'm going to go in here where I was, come out down there, pull tight, stretch it back. See, the threads are back in there. You barely see where you did all of that work that's on the front. And then you continue on doing the back stitching of the eyebrows, the mouth, and the little line down the eye patch. Now that we've finished doing his face, it's time to attach his eyes. And so for that, again, we go to our thread that's DMC thread or embroidery thread. This time we're using 2 strands. You can see there's 2 strands there. It's done this exact same way. Do your needle. You're going to come in through the back. There's usually no need to knot that one in. We're just going to wait and do that later. So then you're going to find kind of where you want the first eye placement and come out at that eye placement. Pull the thread, leave a nice long thread like that again, and now follow your instructions depending on what size bead to use, and string on 2 beads for the eyes. So there's the 2 beads for the eyes. So there they are. And now, once we have them strung on, it's time to go in at this location here and back out the back where we kind of started there. So there they are, the 2 beads. Now we're going to knot this off, and we're going to pull it real taut so that they push in a little bit, so they indent just a little bit, and then we're going to knot again. Just like that. So now they're indented a bit, and here we're going to do like we've done before. We're going to clip these, and then we're going to hide those thread tails like we did before. So they're all there, just like that. And then you're going to go in here, right next to where you started. Come out off to the side. Pull it real tight. Clip it, move it around. You can see it's gone. And then you've only got those little spots where you've done all of your stitching. And we're going to cover that up with the scarf, so you won't even be able to see it. So there's the front of his eyes. So we're ready now for the next step.